Hi, I'm Michael Josh, your gadget matchmaker, helping you find the right device to match your needs. I know you're all buried in iPhone content today, but I have a special treat for you, straight from California streaming to my screen and yours. Please welcome Apple's VP for iPhone Product Marketing, Kaiann Drance, and Human Interface Designer, Johnnie Manzari. Hi Kaiann, hi Johnnie, how are you guys doing?
We're fantastic. Thanks so much for having us, Michael. We're thrilled to be here today.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
This is a dream come true for me, so I just want to thank you for the opportunity, as well as for taking time out of your busy schedules. I can imagine how crazy it must be for both you and for me. Well, the event literally had me dreaming of California. I was just there like a month ago, but also dreaming for new iPhones. And today I really want to talk about one feature in particular, cinematic mode, but we can't talk about a new camera feature without talking about new cameras. When I say new cameras, this year, I mean all 5 cameras, regardless of what you buy, the iPhone 13 or 13 Pro series, you're getting new cameras. I love it, Kaiann.
We love it too. I mean, we are so excited. Of course, there's so many things to be excited about in the new iPhone lineup, but with the iPhone 13 and the iPhone 13 mini, we have our most advanced dual camera system, and it's complemented by our A15 Bionic chip with our image signal processor, which bring a lot of really fantastic features with computational photography. Of course, some of that includes cinematic mode. And on the iPhone 13 Pro and on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, we have our biggest camera advancement ever in the history of iPhone, with fantastic upgrades to all 3 rear cameras. And across the lineup, we also have that TrueDepth camera that gets amazing features like cinematic mode, smart HDR4, photographic styles. So it just is a huge year for the phones this year.
Yes, and if you're a Pro user, for the first time, I love the fact that you don't really have to choose. If you get the 13 Pro or 13 Pro Max, now you're getting the same top-of-the-line camera system.
I think that's just such an important thing for our users to know, that they're the same camera systems across the 13 Pro and the 13 Pro Max, SensorShift OIS, big wide sensors, and the same thing across our iPhone 13 and 13 mini. Those are also the same camera systems.
There's a lot going on both in terms of hardware and software, and I'm praying for good weather because I can't wait to take these iPhones on a photo walk. I was thinking, inspired by the keynote Dream of My City kind of video, and I wish that I was in Singapore right now because we have plenty of awesome sights to show off, including a half-spherical Apple store floating in the middle of Marina Bay. Have you guys seen it?
I have not gotten a chance to see it in person, but I am very excited that you will get to see it soon.
Yep, it's definitely on top of my bucket list once I can travel again. But hey, a New York video isn't so bad. And I think now more than ever, that's possible on the new iPhones. Now, to quote my buddy Tim Cook, it's like having a Hollywood rig in your pocket. So, Johnnie, sorry to put you on the spot, but do you agree with your CEO?
I do agree with him, and I think it captures the whole essence and path that we went on with this feature. For cinematic mode, the design process started with what we've been watching in movies our entire lives. We were inspired by filmmakers and the stories they tell. So before we did anything, we spoke to some of the best cinematographers to better understand their craft. We also looked at many films we loved, from the latest blockbusters going back to Hitchcock and other classics. And in doing that, certain trends emerged. It was obvious that focus and focus changes were key storytelling tools, and that as a team, we needed to precisely understand how and when they were used.
I'm curious, of all the features that you could land on, how did you end up with cinematic mode? What was the inspiration behind it?
One thing that we do that I absolutely love is when we begin looking at a problem, even though we work in a world of computational algorithms and machine learning, and we can do things in entirely new ways than traditional techniques that would use manual lenses or silver halide and so on, we always approach the sort of ideas that we have with this deep reverence and respect for image and filmmaking through history. In this particular case, we were fascinated with questions like, what principles of filmmaking are timeless? What craft has endured culturally and why? The reason for that idea is that there is such significance to craft that has endured for decades, if not centuries, if not millennia. And even if we decide to deviate from it, which we a lot of times kind of chart a little bit of our own path with our own perspective, we're always making those deviations deliberately and thoughtfully and respectfully. So what we're really trying to do is understand the timeless fundamentals and then combine that with Apple's design expertise and ease of use, Apple's world-class engineering capability, and then making a camera that is not just great because it's convenient, but also because it's sophisticated and uncompromising and allows people to be creative in ways that they couldn't have even imagined.
For most people, cinematic means different things. And this first question is from Kevin, and he was like, are you changing the lighting of a video to make it more cinematic?
We're not. The lighting is really the same amazing Dolby Vision HDR natural light that you're accustomed to. The thing that inspired us was really the storytelling attributes that came from cinema. Cinema has a way of sharing stories regardless of the overall feel. They can be sad, they can be happy, they can be fun, they can be energetic. It captures a whole range of human emotion, and the thing that occurred to us was that they had hit some fundamental discoveries for how you tell stories, and what we were hoping to do was to bring that to people in a way that was easy to use and effortless, so that people who don't even think of themselves as filmmakers can all of a sudden go and create films like they could have never imagined. And that's what inspired us to go do this feature.
I have one hardcore techie question, and this one is from Barba, and he was like, why then 1080 at 30 and not 1080 at 24?
That's a great question. One of the things that we really liked about 1080-30 was that it's just a very versatile sweet spot when it comes to video formats. And it's also our default in our video mode as well. And we loved the flexibility that it offered for people to record their videos as well as to post them on social media, regardless of what kind of output they wanted to have.
Well, you talked about how the art of filmmaking, with just little subtle nuances, you can lead the eye and tell a story without having to say something or have a dialogue. And one of those features is rack focus. Can you talk more about what it is and what it can do?
This is the amazing thing about this feature. If you really look at cinema, you focus on the story, you don't focus on the techniques that they use because you're so engaged in the story itself. And it's only when you mess up focus that people notice. And if it's done perfectly, it sort of melts away. Now, the challenge is that today you have to be an incredibly skilled professional in order to be able to have a great focus in video. Working with shallow depth of field in video is very difficult. The reason for this is that if you're off, even by a small amount. For example, if you set focus on someone's ear instead of their eye, it just makes the footage unusable. I mean, you really have to start all over. And this is why when you look at how Hollywood crews produce movies, there is a lot of effort and practice and planning that goes into having great focus and being able to do those focus transitions like a rack focus. And this is the type of challenge that Apple tackles best. Taking something that's difficult and conventionally hard to learn and turning it into something that's automatic and simple and just completely effortless. And when we went and started to study this, we noticed in our research that there were very specific capabilities that were important for us to really nail in order for this feature to come to life. And in addition to the focus changes that we talked about with rack focus, something as simple as holding focus on a subject as they're moving and as the camera's moving at the same time, it sounds easy, but this is a very difficult problem. And then we introduced the idea of not just holding focus on that subject, but racking focus to another subject. We put a lot of energy into figuring out when the focus should change in order to have it feel like it was absolutely considered in the same way that a cinematographer would think about it. And that's what led us into this idea of looking at gaze as a fundamental driver of narrative and story. And we put a lot of energy into understanding not just who is in the scene, but also what's important and when we should do those rack focus changes.
One of my favorite features of cinematic mode is how, while you can manually select who to keep in focus, the iPhone can also figure that out and make those choices for you. What kind of insane magic is this?
It's really remarkable, and I think it's such a testament to the care that the team put into really building this in order for people to share their stories. And this is something that is not easy to do. It really requires the entire team to come together. And what I mean by that is you can start with the experience and build out the kinds of features that we discussed, whether it's holding focus, racking focus, those amazingly smooth transitions. And then we have to figure out the algorithms, and then we have to go work with our silicon team in order to figure out how to do this amount of processing in real time. In addition to all of that, we're grading each frame in Dolby Vision while all this is happening. And so it's just such an amazing accomplishment to see this all come together in a way that for consumers should be as easy as just rolling a shot and then getting some great footage.
So rack focus is pretty cool, but speaking from experience, it's also very difficult. I'm curious though, can't you actually already do that from video mode on an iPhone? You know, being able to tap something close and then tap something far away. How is this different?
As you described, these things are hard to do, and the longer your take, the longer your shot, and the more things that are changing, the difficulty just goes up exponentially. And these were the kinds of things that not only was difficult to do on an iPhone prior to cinematic mode, but are just really difficult to do even if you're a skilled professional with a lot of professional equipment. And the kinds of things that I absolutely love to shoot right now are complex shots that might begin macro and then transition to my kids playing. I can then pan up, record what's shooting through the trees, the light, and that kind of a shot with all the changes that happen is so difficult to do. And the fact that the iPhone makes it just effortless is what has me completely excited.
Follower Caledonio asks, how fast can it change focus? Is there a set time for that transition, for that focus change? And can you change it manually?
Well, you know what's really amazing when you hang out on a film set, one of the things that they do that is just absolutely remarkable and requires such skill and finesse and craft and expertise is not just changing the focus and holding the focus, but the way they do those transitions. And it reminds me a bit of an amazing pianist and the way that they're able to play the piano with such nuance and care, and it really resonates. And when we started to understand this, we put a lot of thought and care into how we do the transitions. Because the focus is important, but the transitions are as important as the focus itself. And we put a lot of thought into this idea that in the analog world, a human is turning a wheel. And there's certain ramps and timing that make that feel beautiful. And so we developed very special algorithms that take all of this into account and try to mimic the sensation of a person turning that focus wheel.
Now from filming, I want to talk about editing very quickly. I also love the fact that you can now go in after filming, make those changes about who's in focus just from that edit button.
All the energy that went into building this feature is even extended by the fact that afterwards you can sit and explore. And this is something that's just impossible to do today. And it is such a learning tool because it allows you to understand in a really simple way how powerful focus is as a storytelling tool. You can try different things, and if you don't like, you can undo them. You can duplicate the video many times and try different variations with different amounts of blur or different types of focus. In doing that, it's so liberating, and I think it allows people to be creative in ways that they just wouldn't have been able to do otherwise.
I don't want to waste a lot of time just talking about the technical stuff, and I wanted to kind of bring it back to one question that a lot of users had. So Kaiann, I want to go back to you. I know in the keynote you talked about how a great tool like the iPhone 13 can be maximized by someone with an Academy Award or two, but how do you think this is going to change things for the average user?
Well, it is all of our hope that average users can just pick this up and start unlocking creative potential they may not even have realized that they had. And the beauty that Johnnie and the teams that worked on this, they made it so accessible. You know, we talked about making that wheel really feel like that in the focus transition, but you don't have to know anything about that. All you have to do is pick it up and trust that in automatic, we're going to make that focus transition a dynamic pace that's going to match what we think is true to that scene based on all the techniques that they studied. You know, if you're not used to even shooting on the rear camera, cinematic mode is on the front camera. So you could be taking an epic selfie video. You can do some fun things, like maybe you have a moment where you're hiding in the blur and then you suddenly come into focus as a surprise moment. And we can do this on pets and objects. So you could literally make like a half-eaten donut the focus of that video, and you could make it dramatic, you could make it funny. The possibilities are really endless. And what we saw in the film in Keynote, the whodunit segment, you know, we had this whole fun story with humor, with drama, and we did the entire sequence without a word of dialogue. You know, and that just shows the power of what this tool can do. And so we hope that everyone's just going to open their phones, go into cinematic, and just start playing with it. And as you said, they don't have to commit. If they do something different one way, they go back. That depth data is retained in there, and they can change what the focus is on, where it's a subject, you know, a cat, a donut, or they can even change the intensity of the blur. And so it's there, right there for them. And that's what also gets us really excited, that this tool from these pro techniques are just going to be out there for all of our iPhone users.
Well, in this age of TikTok and Instagram, everyone is in their own way a video creator of some sort. I personally remember my journey. I don't want to date myself, but it was a very long time ago, and two things really encouraged me to go online. One was recognizing the internet as a platform, and the other was the iPod. Listening to podcasts on my iPod made me realize that I too could go online and publish on my own and tell my own stories. The only difference is back then I had to go out and buy a very expensive video camera. These days, most users have the camera that's in their pocket.
Exactly, love that.
Well, guys, I know you have a packed schedule, so I will let you go. But before you do, I need you to promise me, because I know it's only a matter of time, that a ShotOniPhone Film Festival will happen. And I want to make sure that I'm invited. I promise I will buy a fancy tux. I won't rent one, so that I can walk the red carpet if I'm not nominated for an award
Awesome.
myself.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you so much for having us. It was an absolute pleasure to speak to your viewers.
Thanks for having us. It was really fun.
Appreciate it, Johnny.
Good luck. Bye.
Bye.